Welcome back. This week, let's talk a little bit about weight loss, more specifically, postpartum weight loss or weight gain, rather. So, this happened to me. I don't know if any of you can relate who are watching, but it was after my younger daughter was almost 2 years old that, in the span of several weeks, three people, not one, not two, but three people asked me if I was pregnant. I thought this was kind of bold because usually you don't ask somebody if they're pregnant unless you know that they're pregnant, right? But three different people came up to me and asked me if I was pregnant. And I was like, oh, no, I'm not. And the first person who asked, my my response was, "No, but I think it's just postpartum baby weight." And she said, "Oh, how old is your baby?" And I had to pause because my baby was almost 2. And so then it's like, "Oh, well, maybe this is it could still be postpartum, right? Postpartum can last up to 10 years, so let's go with that." And then the second person asked, and the third person asked, and I at that point just said, "No, I'm not, but okay." And so, but that was a little bit of a wake up call for me because after my first was born, I figured I would try to get pregnant again, not right after, but the motivation to take the steps necessary to make my health a priority when I had this baby, running my practice, all the things is, not as high on my list, even though it should be, especially being in the world of healthcare. I didn't. And so my starting weight with my second pregnancy was higher than what I had experienced before. And then during the process of my second pregnancy, I recognized that, like, okay, this is different when you have extra weight, especially being relatively petite. But regardless of your size, right? This is kind of one of those challenges with pregnancy, is that regardless of your size, the baby grows and adds about 25 to 30 pounds of weight on your body. So if you are petite, there's really not much space for the baby to grow except for out here. And there, you don't have the length to really distribute the weight differently. And so when it comes to postpartum, right, a lot of times we talk about the recovery of tissues and the 6 week marker being like kind of the magic marker in terms of which you can kind of resume normal activity or go back to your pre-pregnancy status of your activities, your approach to your health, and all of that. But when it comes to actual healing of tissues, that can take a lot longer, right? Postpartum can last up to 10 years. But because of all the different hormone changes and because of all the things that are happening in your body in such a short period of time to grow this baby, we also need time to recover. But do you need about 2 years to recover? Well, potentially. I mean, there can be things happening for 2 years, but we want to try to make sure that our bodies are coming back to a place of foundational health, right? And so even being in the world of healthcare and looking at nutrition and movement and all those things, it can be really easy to help others and sometimes not put that focus on yourself. So as a mom, the attention goes to the kids or the babies, especially when they're born. And then as a practitioner, then my focus and attention goes to my practice members and can be easier to not take responsibility for my own steps that I need to do. And so this started to become something that was highlighted for me because I've always really tried to walk the walk and talk the talk, especially with my practice members and then also with my kids, to not just say, like, do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. I've tried to avoid that as much as I can. And so then I had to go through this process of some of the questions that my practice members ask, right? Like, should I do keto or paleo, or should I eat this or not eat this? Should I move for 10,000 steps in a day? Or what is the number of steps I need to take? What type of movement do I do? Aerobic exercise, anaerobic exercise. There's so much information. And this is what I talk about in my job. But for those of us who maybe don't do this for our jobs and you're thinking about so many other things for your day-to-day life, it can be a lot to add on when it comes to what are all the different components of this? What's the sequence of this so that it's sustainable, right? I need to drink the water. I need to eat this. I need to get enough sleep. I need to make sure I move. I need to stay positive. All of those things can feel like a lot to take in and a lot to kind of decipher in terms of what do I do first? What has the most significance and most relevance? And so unintentionally, I basically had to go through this process myself, but unintentionally created a program to say that, okay, this is how the body's connected, right? So working with chiropractic and functional medicine and looking at how structure and function play together and that you can't really separate them. So how do you influence structure by working on function? How do you influence function by working on structure? How does that all play together? How does your mindset get involved with that? And so going through it in a very systematic way to say, we will address this and then we'll make this lifestyle change and this lifestyle change, but they're all seemingly small, right? So it's not difficult because of the actual change that needs to be made, but what gets challenging is maintaining those changes, right? How many of you have ever modified your food choices or tried a new type of workout or exercise, and then a few weeks later, a couple months later, you're kind of back to doing what you've been doing, right? Like you've given up the sugar for a few weeks while you're doing a cleanse, and then slowly sugar starts making its way back into your life, right? So this is just the reality for so many of us. So instead, if we can go through it in a very systematic way to say, we're going to take step one, step two, step three, go through this in a much slower way, but a much more deliberate way to actually make these changes so that if you plan to have another child, or even if it's just to create foundational health for your own body, regardless of what your goals are, if we can focus on optimizing our health instead of just chasing the symptoms. So instead of just thinking about it as trying to lose weight, and instead of that, right, there are so many different weight loss programs and so many people will do it, but then they'll regain the weight because the symptom is the weight gain, but it's not the actual underlying root cause of what needs to be addressed. So, if we can strengthen the foundation and give our body the support that it needs, then all of these other symptoms start to find their way out. We have worked really hard actually on creating this program and making it something that we hope that you and the general public will really benefit from. So if you're interested in getting more information about it, please feel free to check out the link below so that you'll be on the wait list, and then you'll find out as soon as it's getting released, you'll get all the information and you can be one of the first people to sign up. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.